Welcome to My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, a journey into the deepest teachings of Torah and their application to our personal, emotional, and psychological lives.
A good tavach, a good week, and a ksiva v'chesim teva, especially as we prepare to go to Slichas. How appropriate is it to continue our journey in the life-changing Sefer Tanya? This program is made possible by Rena Lights LLC and is dedicated in honor and memory of Rabbi Yosef Alevi Weinberg Olav Shalom, Rabbi Moshe Pinchas HaKohen Katz Olav Shalom, and Rabbi Yael HaKohen Khan Olav Shalom. It's also in schus and merit of Rabbi Zev Yecheskel HaKohen and Risha Katz La'erich Yom V'Shanim Tevis for long, healthy years. So we are up to the middle of chapter 22 in Tanya, discussing the very fundamental concept of Kedusha and Klippa, of holiness and the opposite of holiness. That which is aligned with the divine plan and that which is not aligned with the divine plan. The truth is, the general topic we spoke about earlier, chapters 6 and 7 and 8, but primarily 6 and 7. But here he's discussing it in context of, let's remember the flow, of Anechi and Lo Yilecha Lekim Acherim, the two core mitzvahs, central mitzvahs that encompass all other mitzvahs within them, as he began to explain in the beginning of chapter 20 and 21 continue, and now 22, in order for us to understand the dynamics that existence is in reality divine, but it's concealed. Concealed. And that concealment is also part of the divine plan. And as a result of the concealment, we have forces that are not necessarily aligned with godliness. To the point that when the tzimtzumim are so otzmu, they become so intense, like he explained earlier, that actually could create klippus and sitra achre govru, kol kach govru v'otzmu atzimtzumim v'hester ponim el yenim, that things that are impure from the klippas, the husk, and the other side can be created. But if everything is created by God, how can they be created when they are going against God? So the answer is because it's through many concealments. That they receive it from the energy from Dvar Hashem as well. The Ruach Pivyos, behester ponim v'yeridas hamadregas. The concealment of the divine face, the divine revelation, and the divine energy. And that's why they're called Elikim Acherim, as he explained, and we learned. Acherim, the Alter Rebbe explains Acherim from the word Acharayim, because they receive their energy not from a direct flow, but from an indirect flow. The example he gave, like someone who wants to give a gift for whatever reason to someone that they hate, to an enemy of theirs. So it's B'chinas Acharayim, not B'chinas Ponim. Like you throw it over your back as a second thought, dismissively. So to Lamaila, the ponim, pnimius, where is the divine energy is flowing? Everything that's aligned to God's plan. From Kedusha. But Sitra Achre, the other side, that follows its own intentions. So he says, "Asidach v'atuma hiteyav Hashem asher soneh." Teyavas Hashem asher soneh. That's something that is despised by God because it's not aligned with the plan. And in a sense, it's not about despise. It's not a personal thing. It means it's not following the divine plan. It's not a healthy state. It's a toxic state. So he's not mashpila chayes me pnimis harotz, and it's not coming from a pnimis place that, as you would give to someone that you love and that is following and is aligned with your intentions. So then, why is he giving it energy? Because this b'chira. Because the whole purpose of creation is not to live in leib teira leib b'shamayim. We're not in heaven. It's to come down into a dark world where there is this concealment. And we should be wise, meaning we, the human being, and see through it and illuminate and realign existence and intensify its alignment with God's plan. The way he puts it is akadei lahainish es harashayim u'litnschar teiv l'tzadikim. Diskafin l'sitra achre. Dikafin, l'sitra achre. The ones that have subdued and have tamed the sitra achre. Or suppress the sitra achre. Now someone asked the question, so why doesn't you just say bchira? Because of bchira, that's why there are places where the divine is concealed to the point that it defies God, or allows us to defy God. So firstly, it's a lashon from Chazal. It's a Pi Pirkei Avos, beginning of chapter 5. We all know why. B'asarim ha'maris nivra elam. Even though b'yachal livaris, he could have created the world with one maimer, in order to give schar to tzaddikim and einish to Zeshai. But there's another point here, because it could be misunderstood. You think the whole point is God wants to punish. He wants to reward. That's not why God created the world, to reward and punish. So we have to go back to the concept of schar and einish. What's reward and punishment? It's a big misunderstanding. The Shalat talks about it and says, schar and einish is siba mesubav. It's cause and effect. When you put your hand in fire, the fire is not punishing you. On the contrary, it's a blessing that God said you're going to feel heat, you're going to feel pain, so you're going to avoid being hurt. It's just like pain itself. It's not an end in itself. It's a warning. It's a red flag. Like a warning signal. Do something about it. God created the world for a purpose, that we should turn the existence of this physical world into adira b'tachtenim, into a home for the divine. We do so through Torah mitzvahs. For there to be tachtenim, the very word tachtenim, as the Alter Rebbe explains later in chapter 36 in Tanya, does not mean in space the lowest level, like the basement. It means the lowest in divine revelation. Like what we're learning here, the concealment is so intense, ein tachtnish, ein tacht lamat mimeno. Nothing lower, nothing more concealed, to the point that you can have an existence of klippus and sitra achra that defy God, and say ani va'avsied, as we'll learn later in this chapter as well. Me and nothing else. The truth is ein eid milvadi, nothing but God. Me, nothing but me. That's the extent of the extreme antithesis of tachtenim. So to do that, there has to be this concealment in a way that makes sense, that we can understand. And our job is to reveal within the concealment, and to the point of transforming the concealment and transforming this world into a home, a garden for the divine. So we say, the Mishnah says, and here the Alter Rebbe uses the expression, to give schar to tzaddikim, to punish the Rishayim, is saying, therefore in existence is built in an immune system. It's called cause and effect. When you align yourself, your own life, and existence around you, and you choose life, as we learned in this week's parsha, today's parsha that we read. What you're doing is cause and effect, schar. You're drawing down the divine energy in a primistic way from the ponim elyenim, like he's saying here, in a direct way, because it's all aligned. If God forbid a person does not choose that path, the shayim, then what's the cause and effect? It's like the fire burning. The existence itself, there's consequences. When you hurt someone, when you do something that God said not to do, it's like eating poison for the soul. And there's going to be an effect. That's called einish. So it's not God is up there waiting and saying, oh, you know what? I can't wait to reward this one and punish that one. Almost like I don't want to say kaviyachal, a sadistic principal or something of a school that likes to punish or reward, plays favoritism. It's part of the plan, the schar and einish. And this is a given. Anyone who learns Torah properly, Chassidus properly, especially, as I said, based on the Shalah, understands it. And so that's why you have the element. But you need to have the second, you need tachtenim, you need the second option. And for that, the energy has to be concealed, or, like he says here, thrown over your back like acharayim. which is also explains why he brings schar l'sadikim. Why is that relevant here? If it's just about explaining why acharaim, because he wants to explain the whole picture here. The picture is to be aligned and get the premius, not acharaim. But there's also the other side, the other option, and that's why it begins with the Hashem, because that's what we're talking about. And they could also explain why these kafim l'sitra achra. Why is that relevant? We're not talking about tzaddikim here, because that's the aveda to suppress the negative side and reveal the divine. It should be in a direct flow, not an indirect flow. This is called acharayim. So in other words, einish is the effect of energy that's coming acharayim and it's being embracing. As soon as you choose, God forbid, not to align yourself with God and do what you want to do, as we'll learn a little later in this Perek, what you're doing, you have written your own script, you've written your own narrative. And what's that narrative? That your energy is not going to come directed, because that's not what God wants. He wants you to build a beautiful home, not to defile it, not to desecrate it, not to build something just for yourself. And as a result, that's called acharayim derotzna elyon baruch hu. The backside, the other side. Sitra achre, also achre, the other, like acharayim. Even though it doesn't say that explicitly, but acharayim is that energy. Now the Alter Rebbe continues as he develops this picture. This rotzna elyon means the desire, God's plan. It's a very direct plan. He wants us to transform this world into a home for God. That's the Mokar HaChaim, is the source of all life and energizes all the worlds. That energizes all the worlds. Now you see here, he's saying all the worlds. He's not just saying Kedusha. Because all the worlds are created in order to make a dira b'tachtein. It's true. Kedusha, let's say a mitzvah, is obviously primius rotzna elyon, like we said before. Tzaddikim, primius rotzna elyon. That's the very purpose of existence. But in order for them to come to this world, we need a world. They need a platform. They need a home. They need a place to work in. So that's also getting chayes directly from that source, what he calls b'chinas panim. Ulefisha eina sheira klal al sitra achre. And because this panim, this inner dimension of the divine will, is not rest, does not dwell or rest at all on the sitra achre, because the sitra achre has created its own agenda. It's like a king sends out messengers to go do a job, a mission. Let's make it more contemporary. A government sends out astronauts to go to outer space on a mission. So the astronauts are following guidelines and they're following all the strict details. One astronaut decides to wander off. He's going to do his own thing. So let's not even get into whether he's jeopardizing the others. But he's jeopardizing himself. He's no longer, he's taken himself out of the equation. He's not fulfilling his mission. So obviously what he called b'chinas panim is not illuminating in him, because he's taken himself out of it. Like we said, he's chosen the other path, his own path. So ein sheira klal al sitra achra. The other side is not the rest at all. But it still needs life. That astronaut still is around. He's alive. So even though he severed, so-called, or concealed the connection to the panim, what gives him life? That's where we get back to b'chinas acharayim. So the second point is that the energy he does receive is not direct energy. And even that minimal energy that enters into him which does not become immersed internally and integrated with him, does not manifest internally, like I said, within him. But it's only in a form of hovering, not physically hovering, meaning it's not directly there. He's still getting, yes, for example, the food that all the astronauts have, or even messages they're receiving from the base. It's all coming, but it's coming to him in the form of makif because he's like not part of the mission, or he's chosen not to be part of the mission. Ela makif alo amamayla. And as a result of that, lakachi mokim hamisa v'atuma. Therefore, this so-called entity out of the reservation has now become a place of death and impurity. You could say a zone. Hashem yishmerenu. May God protect us. Because now, yes, it's a dangerous situation. Let's go back to the example of the astronauts. Now he's jeopardizing himself and others because if he's not following the guidelines, what can happen? It's a very vulnerable place to be in. It's not a threat, it's just a cause and effect, as we said earlier. So it's a mokam ha'misa v'atuma, Hashem yishmerenu. So two things here. Number one, he's not getting the energy from the pnim that we established, from the inner, which is giving life to all of the worlds and all the existence and everything. And gam chinas acharayim is not, even that's not melubish b'teicha mamish. It's also not integrated within him. It's only like somewhat separate from him. So think of it in practical human terms. Someone that's chosen not to align themselves with God's plan and their mission in this world have essentially written their own sentence. Now it's about you. You're following your own thing. So you can't get the energy directly. You're like not, you've chosen to go away, wander away, like the Eibishter tells Adam Arishan after Chet Tetzdas, Ayeko, where are you? He knew where he was physically, but where are you? You're not aligned, you're not together. You're not present. You're not present in the divine plan that I set up for you. But we have free will. So, of course, in a sense, like you're saying, you could have love of your parents, but if you decide to reject that love, or you decide to do something that goes against the very love of your parents and your family, so you'll still get energy that's coming from the divine source, but you're getting it in a very minimal way. Because it's not the intention is to feed your negative. It's like a parent who may feed and sustain a child that's really, let's say, become a criminal. They do it because I love the child. But it's not that the energy that's being given to you is like direct and willingly. It's because it's my child, so I have no choice in a way. Say no choice. There's always choice God has, but I mean to say it's coming like throwing the gift over your back. Like we say, "Va'atam adveikim b'Hashem Elokechem, chayim kulchem hayem," or Hashem Elokeim emes hu Elokim chayim. It's a source of life. But there's still something that needs to be clarified here. We're talking here like a paradox. It's getting energy in a minimal way, not from the inner will, but just because God has the plan and wants a dira b'tachtenim, so gives it energy. Even that outer energy, so to speak, coming from the back, is in a form of makiv, not integrated. But the bottom line is, there is energy inside this thing. That's why it's alive. So as much as you explain because of free will, well, how do you explain the very energy, even that minimal energy, that this astronaut who's mutineered, who's rebelled, chosen his own path, still getting it? I mean, to put it in more stark terms, shouldn't that cause that he should just simply disappear? Should simply die, God forbid. Because he's going against the very purpose of his existence. So he's going to introduce now, no, you can have the energy, And the energy is in there. We're not talking about now that the previous decay or the level that remains, that is beyond and not as makif is not integrated. That even that which does enter, that little amount that does enter, he's going to call it a golus. It's in a state of golus, of displacement. Kima'at mizer er v'chayis. Because the tiny glimmer, the tiny speck of light and sustenance and vitality, a minuscule amount of the vitality and life energy that's within the Sitra Achra, sheyenekas u'mekabelas l'teichem mebchinas acharayim, the Kedusha Shalamayla, that does suckle and nurse and draw from the back of the divine holiness. The B'chinas Acharayim, the Kedusha Shalamayla, from the back. So that astronaut, he's part of the team. He's pulled himself out of it, but he's still getting the energy, whatever it is that they're all getting. But that minimal amount, and it's only minimal at this point, is definitely not from the inner dimension. It's only the outer dimension. Even that is a form of makif, not inward, not internal. So that is, he says, he b'chinas golus mamish b'teicha. It's a critical point here. Because you could say, maybe that energy, you know what? I'm not going to say the NASA, I'm using an example of flying to outer space. It could be anyone. That the host said, you know what? Okay, let him have it. No, it's in the form of gullahs there. It's in a form of internal psychological displacement and pain. Because gullahs mamish b'teicha means totally exiled. Displaced is a very good word. When a person is displaced means you're there and you're part of it, but you're not where you belong. So there's a tremendous dissonance. Would be also an excellent word for Golus Mamish. B'teicha. B'seid Golus Hashchina Aniska Le'il. As in the secret of the Shechina's exile, the divine exile, which was mentioned above, talking in chapters 17 and 19. So we know the expression in the Gemara Megillah, the end of Megillah, B'chol Mokim, Shegolu, everywhere where the Jewish people were exiled. Shechina Imam, the Shechina is with them. And this concept of Shechina with them is like when you say, Gola Talmid is Gola Rabbi Imei, that when a student is sent off to one of the cities of refuge, his teacher goes with him. So it's a golus for the teacher. It doesn't. He's limited there, but he goes with him. The Shechina goes. It's called golus hashchina. So the Shechina goes into exile with us. So this explains it's obviously not the highest levels of godliness. They become more removed, but there's a part of golus hashchina that just adds to the distress and the agony here. So now we can understand why it's called Makam HaMisa v'Hatuma, even though divine energy is there, but it's called a place of death and impurity, a place of displacement, of dissonance. You can explain with this all psychological dissonance. You're there, you're existing. You're not, God forbid, dead. But the energy is not really, it's a minimal, like a zombie, God forbid. It's displaced. So there's energy, but it's in a displaced and dissonant fashion. And of course, there are many levels of that. So there's Ma'at Mazer. There is, like you said, Mazer, there's a small amount of energy there. But it's in a displaced way. Think of a person, God forbid, who's not well. So when the energy flowing properly in a human body, a healthy body, and all the flow is coming smoothly, there's no blockages, and there's no infections, there's no problems. But if there's a blockage, the energy may come in, but in a very minimal way. What will happen? So I'm not even getting to what the worst that could happen. But even at that point, it's like the energy, the life energy of the soul, of the person's soul, is in a very distressed way. It's in a distressed place. It's in a form of golus. So this also explains when we saw earlier that the tzimtzumim didn't just create concealment. They created a state that can be defy, and in that sense a dissonance. So the parent is still giving energy, still sending an allowance, still supporting that child that may be the worst criminal. But that's the ultimate pain. So we're talking about writing someone off, then you could say they have no energy and therefore there's no life even. That's not what we're saying. It's a mokim amisa. But it's a mokim, it's like a living dead in a way, spiritually speaking, because you're not aligned to the purpose. And with this, the Alter Rebbe is setting the stage to explain deeper meaning, what means Elikim Acherim. Till now, we learned Elikim Acherim, so we know what Rashi says, the Medrash says, Elikim Shel Acherim, others that, he explained others, gods of others, so to speak. Then Acherim from the word Acharayim, that's the main explanation until here. Explaining the energy is coming from the back place, from the backside. Now he's going to go further and explain Elikim Acherim, that it's literally like a Veda Zara, like a false god, other gods that are the opposite and antithetical to the true God that permeates all of existence. Which is, of course, critical because he wants to explain how all Torah mitzvahs, not just Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is a direct idolatry, direct violation of the cardinal sin of all. But everything, as soon as you don't feel there's godliness within you, as soon as you become that astronaut that has even wandered a drop, what's happening is the energy becomes diminished, it's in a state of golus, and as a result, it is a form, in a microcosm, if you wish, in some subtle form, a form of Avodah Zarah. That's what we're going to learn now. But we'll stop here, and let's B'Simon B'Teiv. The opposite side is what's happening now. With this week, we're going to be Machtir Hashem, crown God as what? As king. Tamlichuni Aleichem. What does that mean? As a king, that we, and all our resources, and all our beings 24/7, and everything from head to toe is not one drop not aligned. That's called Kedusha. That's called that you are now drawing the energy, and that's why there are blessings as a result. Cause and effect. The cause and effect of being aligned draws the source of life into us in a direct way. So Hashem should bless each of us. Each of you with L'shana Teva Masukah. A blessed year of Tev B'Goli in a revealed way. Hashem should protect all the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, the soldiers, release the hostages unscathed. And may this coming year be one where we can redeem and elevate, and should be only Simcha, Tev Anira V'Anigla, and march into the Gula Amitis V'Ashleim even before Rosh Hashanah. Everyone have a good Yontif, a good Yor, a good Gebench Yor. We're here every Motzei Shabbos, New York time, Eastern time, 10 p.m. Tanya Applied.com, where you can find this and all previous programs. Good Gebench Yor.
This has been My Life Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Please join us again next week. Visit ChasidusApplied.com for archived classes and more resources.